Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I want to see if we can cover three specific topics in our session today. I want to give a quick update and an overview of AWS Marketplace, service for customers to find, buy, trial, discover, and deploy third-party software on top of AWS. I want to talk about some of the procurement innovations we've developed and some of the solutions we have to help folks on the procurement side. And lastly, we have a number of our distinguished customers that are Marketplace users that will come up and give a panel discussion today. Before we get started, let me poll the room a little bit. How many of you are from the classic IT shop? Operations, development? Get a show of hands. Okay. About a third of you. What about classic procurement, governance, operations teams? Okay, a couple hands. How many of you are ISVs or software providers, solution providers? Okay, also about a third. So we have a third, and a third. There's no question that the vast majority of workloads are moving to public cloud. And as they move to public cloud, about 75% of those workloads going forward into the future will be running in SaaS-style applications. We hear from customers in the public sector space that there are really a couple core reasons why that is. The top reasons customers tell us that they're moving to the cloud is innovation. The ability to spin up systems and infrastructure, to trial, to test, to pilot. And if situations work, they can scale and grow them. If those platforms or apps don't work, they can spin them down and retry again. The agility and speed that the cloud enables really helps our customers support their missions and grow faster. Another factor, in most cases, customers find that moving to the cloud helps them with our cost, lower the cost model, and then trade capital expense for operating expenses, and let AWS and their partners do the undifferentiated heavy lifting of the infrastructure. Really what this leads to, and very important for our public sector customers, is mission effectiveness. How do they serve citizens better? How do they get the mission going? How do they get outcomes with research or citizen services or community services? What we hear also from these customers is once they get cloud started, there's some struggles very often with software procurement. You have your cloud infrastructure and your cloud platforms, but that third-party ecosystem sometimes is a challenge or struggle. And some of the challenges that they've raised to us, and we've heard again and again, how do I manage all my licenses? How do I know who's using what piece of software? I've licensed my software in a legacy infrastructure environment. How do I control governance? Who gets to launch it? Who gets to control it? How is it deployed? Other areas around software management of that catalog. Things like my licenses actually may not transfer to the cloud. How do I security credential all this software that runs in the cloud? And when we look at customers, an average public sector organization, a large enterprise, has about 1,000 application portfolios. This can scale up or scale down, but when they come from a legacy environment, usually classic physical server architectures or virtual architectures, what customers tell us, and the stats we've seen from the market, is about a third of the applications they have when they move to the cloud will move with no problem. Software licenses work, the platform works, there's a supportive model there to go to the cloud. About a third of those licenses actually will need to be re-architected, modernized, transformed. And that last third, customers are telling us they're actually going to abandon or replace or actually won't move to the cloud. On average, customers, the large enterprise customers and public sector organizations, use somewhere between 300 to 500 software vendors. And this really raises a large potential for rationalization. If you look at the right side of this slide, customers have a lot of choice on how they're going to run their future state applications. Whether it's a software as a service model where they outsource the operations and run, or whether it's something like serverless, or they choose to run in containers. They use standard machine images, standard virtualized images, the Amazon machine image in our parlance. Or in some cases, they have to run on-prem for different business or operational regions. It's estimated now, when you drill down a little further into this stack, that about 15% of an organization's budget is spent on third-party software. That's the working model. And when we talk to customers, they have these three levels of segmentation. Usually somewhere around 5 very large vendors that make up about 50% of their budget. These are the classic large vendors that they'll spend time doing an enterprise licensing agreement, and big, large enterprise vendors for infrastructure and platform. Where this gets interesting and where AWS Marketplace is designed to specifically help both the IT side and procurement is when you move down to the next two levels. Organizations tell us they have about 50 applications that are their strategic applications. And on the procurement side, they want to spend their procurement cycles, which is often a rate-limiting factor for how fast they can launch and deploy applications and get contracts closed. They want to spend their procurement cycles on the 50. Source selection, vendor selection, the right terms, security vetting, deployment architectures on the 50. And then on the 500, what organizations are telling us is they want to spur that innovation. If you have a 2-week sprint or a DevOps cycle, you can't do a multi-month procurement and source selection to support that for that DevOps cycle. So how do you use tooling, automation, control, and governance to allow your teams, your technical teams, to get that 500 different vendors within boundaries, guardrails, and controls, and get that software up and running quickly? AWS Marketplace was designed and built to specifically help customers with this style segmentation. AWS Marketplace is a managed and curated software catalog with an e-commerce storefront that helps customers innovate faster and reduce cost by making it easier to find, buy, immediately deploy, and manage third-party software. One of the unique things about AWS Marketplace is it's all integrated on the AWS bill. So when the customer uses software at a marketplace, that software and the consumption of that software goes on their AWS bill, as well as all of the tooling that AWS has developed for billing management, cost allocation, cost forecasting, and cost tracking. AWS Marketplace has over 4,800 different listings from 1,400 different software companies. And if you look at that additional stat, we have 230,000 active customers a month that are using AWS Marketplace. I think this stat is interesting because just about 2 years ago, that number was a third of that size. That gives you a sense of the growth in software marketplaces, not just AWS's, but marketplaces in general. Marketplace is available in 18 regions around the world, including AWS GovCloud, US, our regulated region for customers that need a higher regulatory baseline, FedRAMP High, ITAR, CGIS, for example. AWS Marketplace is also available for our intelligence customers under the C2S contract in our intelligence community marketplace. So looking a little bit more into each of these categories, first on the find part, we have 39 different categories of software to help customers look and drill down into each of these software catalogs. As a classic app store, you can go to the catalog and say, show me the software in the networking category, the security category, storage category. And you could search and find software in each of these areas. Also some new categories such as big data, machine learning. We have a containers marketplace. What we find and customers really love is actually aligning the software usage and the software model in the buy category based on the use case of the software, right? So if I have a short-term tool I only need for a couple weeks or a month, I don't want to actually license that tool for a year for my entire enterprise. I want to align the use case. I want the use case of the software to drive the pricing model, not the other way around. So first we offer free trials. If you want to test 3 or 4 products, a dev team can go into Marketplace, download, deploy, and set up 3 or 4 products very quickly in a morning, test and trial those products, realize 2 don't fit the use case, and then do some technical evaluation in the afternoon on the final 2 and make a product selection by the close of the business day, oftentimes without even talking to a software vendor. That's that innovation and the agility that customers love. If you have a use case like a firewall or an operating system that's going to run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you actually want the value and the discounting options to run in a monthly or annual model. We also support bring your own licenses. If a customer has an extensive install base, you've developed firewall rules or processes, you've ATO'd or security approved a certain software stack, and your operating team is comfortable with that software stack and you've licensed it, many software providers allow you to bring that license right into the cloud. On the deployment front, we have a number of different deployment options that you can roll out right into AWS. At reInvent, just this last year, we announced 2 new deployment types. We have a containers marketplace, over 200 different containers, pre-built and predefined, and the billing entity is the container itself. We also have a machine learning model for machine learning algorithms and models that run under SageMaker or Jupyter Notebooks. We have over 230 of these machine learning models. Things like body part detection, facial recognition, check scanning, and one of my favorites, music style detection. If anyone wants to bring their playlist to me, I'll let you know if you're playing country or rap after the session with a machine learning model out of Marketplace. Of course, SaaS, CloudFormation, Amazon Machine Images, and even APIs out of Marketplace. I mentioned GovCloud. Teresa Carlson, in her keynote just yesterday morning, announced that we have over 1,100 different software listings in GovCloud that are available for customers who need that higher regulatory baseline and that accreditation. One of the things we hear from customers is this challenge between going fast and being regulated and governed. We call this distinction the Ducati crowd, who want to go as quickly as possible to find, install, and spin up software that don't want any kind of boundaries or regulatory items. That's that DevOps team that needs a new tool, versus the Volvo crowd, who want to strap in seatbelts, buckles, airbags, child seats, right? And what we find, and actually what we've built into Marketplace, is you really need to do both. You need governance and you need speed at the same time. And I want to spend a couple minutes sharing 4 specific features that enable you to balance both of these sides of the equation. First feature I want to talk about is private Marketplace. What we heard from customers is 4,800 listings is just far too big. We don't need 50 firewalls. Our organization is actually standardized on one firewall, and we want to give our users the option to use a second firewall, possibly. So what private Marketplace enables the authorized user to do is curate that software list for your organization. If you have an enterprise license, if you have terms and conditions, if you have BYOL, or you want to put some free software into that private Marketplace, your authorized user can set up that catalog in a master payer account or in a child account. You can put your logo, your color scheme, and your deployment mechanism on that, and then allow your users to access private Marketplace. A lot of value for organizations. Again, the governance and control for the titles that you want to actually use or enable your organization to use. You can also use things like IAM roles to control who gets access to the Marketplace and who can put products or listings there. A second feature that we've deployed is enterprise contract for AWS Marketplace. 2 years ago, what a group of ISVs, software providers, and a group of customers told us is one of the major challenges for them with third-party software is negotiating the terms and conditions. And they spend a number of months, I'm sure all of you can share some stories in this exact kind of scenario, they spend a number of months going through these terms and conditions, indemnity, liability, warranty, applicable law. So they said, as a community, we had 12 software providers and 12 enterprise and public sector customers. Can we get our legal teams together to develop a cloud software EULA that we can actually all agree that we can conduct transactions on? And it'll cover 80 to 90% of the core terms and conditions to make this easier. So we developed enterprise contract for AWS Marketplace that does exactly that. The nice thing about this model is we now have over 73 software providers and 600 different software listings that can use enterprise contract. And you can do an appendix to enterprise contract if you have HIPAA, or if you have another set of community terms, something like a set of FAR terms, or a contract set of terms, like NASPO, or your own specific terms you want to append to it. This actually helps organizations just move faster down the contracts path and put some of the negotiations off to the side to speed procurement, deployment, and automation. Here's a snapshot of some of those 73 software providers that are allowing transactions through enterprise contract. And this list is growing every day. Security category, network category, application development, and a number of databases, business intelligence, and other products there. Customers also told us that they love the standard listings. I see a product listed there for a 1-year term. I like that 1-year term, but it doesn't exactly meet my needs. I'd like to do a 3-year term for that same product. I'd like a larger discount. And actually, I want to pay on the 3rd Thursday of every month that has an R in it. So what we've deployed is this concept called AWS Marketplace Seller Private Offers. That enables you as the buyer, the buying organization, and the ISV to negotiate what is the price, what are the contract terms, and apply your own contract terms or the agreed to set of contract terms, as well as the payment and billing invoicing mechanisms. What we're doing with private offers is enabling a digital transaction for the buyer and seller to digitally handshake, have that agreement, and then fulfill that transaction very quickly. Customers have loved this model. It's also available for subscription-based products where I say I want a 3-year term, or for consumption-based products over that same period of term, either on the SaaS side or the Omni side or our different data types. The last category I wanted to mention, the last feature I wanted to mention, is this concept called consulting partner private offers. Many of our public sector customers actually have a vehicle or a schedule or a procurement mechanism they're working through, and they have authorized resellers or authorized contract holders that they need to work with or work through. What we've done with consulting partner private offers is we've enabled that vehicle schedule holder to take marketplace products, put them on their vehicle and schedule, be the seller of record, along with the AWS services they're already selling, to sell marketplace software as well with the terms and conditions that you've agreed to. This is a big value, and you can, via your authorized reseller, you can use the contracts that are already in place. Some of the resellers and partners that are already in this program include DLT, Carasoft, 4Points, Smartronix, and Onica. So let me see if I can put a couple of these in perspective. This chart shows a couple of the options, and I want to illustrate this as basic procurement workflows, and maybe this will prompt some thoughts on how to use Marketplace in the context of your organization, your current policies, your processes, and your procedures. On the first row across the top is this concept of bring your own license. You have the license, you have the software, you have the keys. That software provider is in Marketplace. You go to Marketplace, select the software, you bring that license key that the ISV has already provided to you. Software spins up in the AWS environment, and within minutes, you're up and running and operational. Again, the thing I want to mention here is that software that's deployed through Marketplace is that ISV's best practice architecture. It's their setup with their model that's proven to run on AWS. The second category is using the standard terms and the public licensing terms and the public pricing that's right on the catalog. Classic Marketplace, the price is listed, the terms and conditions are listed. Again, the authorized buyer would go into the Marketplace, find the selected software, purchase it, do a click-through EULA, and then subscribe and deploy in a matter of minutes. Where this gets interesting is the next 2 rows down. If you see a product in the Marketplace today, like a Druva or a Splunk, and you really like that product, but you want custom terms, you can work with the ISV and negotiate price, terms, or duration, and then also negotiate and agree, do a handshake on that EULA, and in a matter of days to weeks, that can be up and deployed and running with the procurement automation features we have. And then the last row is enterprise contract. You can subscribe to software and actually choose to use the enterprise contract that's there, or append or amend those terms and conditions with an agreed to appendix. That gives you a little perspective on some of the automation that's available. So putting this in context, I wanted to show a picture of how this works for a large customer in a up and running operational AWS environment. What would this model actually look like in production? On the left-hand side, a customer has some business cases. They have a use case. They're going to migrate into AWS. There's a number of tools there that AWS provides, third parties provide, systems integrators provide, as well as some marketplace tools actually to help with the migration. Customers usually publish or migrate into something like AWS Service Catalog that enables them to have governance, audit controls, launch controls, role-based tagging, Service Catalog or Control Tower, and then they could publish products, marketplace products or third-party custom developed products into those catalogs. When they're ready to launch and deploy, authorized users, authorized roles can launch and deploy right into production environments in the cloud. What's also important to note, and why I love this slide, is it shows the context in the AWS ecosystem. Remember, centralized billing, all the cost controls, all the billing management, all the tag options, who actually has deployed my software, who's using it, when was it launched. The My Software page right in the AWS console shows all of these details. The security framework as well is wrapped around this entire infrastructure. So as I bring our panel up, some maybe ways to start or some things to think about if you're looking to evaluate Marketplace or expand your usage. First is to think about how you can look at Marketplace in the context of your policies and processes you have in your infrastructure today. Looking at what's available in the catalog, what fits your use cases, what fits the model of the software you're using. Thinking about in that second category, how do you shift traditional multi-year, I'm going to buy at peak, to a consumption-based model for your users, either a pay-as-you-go model or a SaaS contracts model. And in the third area, how can you leverage some of the procurement automation features, possibly a private marketplace, private offers for negotiating those terms and conditions to help you accelerate your outcomes. I want to mention those last two links there. We have some overviews of Marketplace as well as some solution areas specifically designed by ISVs for public sector. We have a number of smart city applications like Rubicon. We have some security and compliance applications for public sector customers across the board on that public sector page there that are pre-built for the use cases that our public sector customers have asked for. So with that, I want to move towards our panel. And we're very fortunate today to have three of our customers with us. Let me start by asking each of you to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Brent Bain. I'm the lead systems architect and cloud architect for Best Friends Animal Society.
My name is Aaron Wright. I'm a system engineer for the University of Notre Dame. I work for the main Office of Information Technology. We provide all the internet and implications for services on campus.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Harsh Prakash. I'm a senior cloud architect with Navteca. I manage the engineering team there. It's a small federal contractor. We are an Amazon partner as well. We have contracts with NASA and NOAA. So I'm here to share some contractor perspective on how we use Marketplace.
Excellent. And maybe we can start with a little description about how your agency is moving to the cloud and the things they're doing to transform the workloads they're moving to the cloud.
Yeah, sure. So Best Friends Animal Society is an animal welfare organization, a nonprofit. We are centered, our main focus is to end killing in the nation shelters of dogs and cats. 4,000 dogs and cats killed in animal shelters every day. We moved our web environment to AWS about 10 years ago, and that was working really well for us. About 4 years ago, we actually looked at moving some internal workloads. We were in that spot where we were looking at an upgrade of one of our critical applications, and our CIO had a cloud strategy, and we were like, okay, we're going to do this upgrade. We have to buy a bunch of hardware. And she said, but we have this cloud strategy, and in 2 years, we're going to have to do it all again. And she said, well, let's just move that whole focus up. So since then, we've moved all of our critical applications out to AWS, and we're continuing to do other things, not just workloads, but we're doing a large data project, collecting data from all the shelters around the nation, and starting to play around with a little bit of machine learning and AI around that.
Excellent. Yeah.
We started around about 2013, 14. We had our university president and came back and said, hey, how are we communicating to our parents if we had an incident, unfortunate to the Virginia Tech incident a few years ago, and if we had our communication lines were to go down. So we started investigating with the proof of concept moving our www website out to AWS. And once we moved that out there, we had to make a determination how we were going to communicate from therefore on to our parents and anybody that's outside the university. We also looked at, okay, what are the things that could happen on the university as far as natural disasters, fires. We have an airplane that's in line in the university and it crashes into our data center. While we were having some of those things, some of those discussions, we were looking at other services to move out there. And as of right now, we have 85% of our services moved into the cloud, and our data center has shrunk down tremendously to about 10 to 15%. With that said, we had to look at what can we use to back up some of those services, and we looked at the AWS Marketplace to help us to determine what we could use to back up our EC2 instances, our file systems, et cetera. And we found a solution out there, and it was fairly easy, and it took a matter of minutes to have it set up. And we've been using that same solution since 2014.
And for me, I've worked with 4 federal agencies over the last 19 years. NASA, before that, CMS, NIH, and then FEMA. And in the last couple of years, I've seen what we're seeing is, again, a lot of movement towards the cloud, but really embracing the DevOps cycle. So for us, whatever the customer is looking for, year in, year out, moving the applications and server instances up to the cloud.
Excellent. So can you share maybe some of the common process or cultural challenges that your organizations have when they're migrating and moving to the cloud? Aaron, maybe you can start with this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think our biggest shift was the cultural change within at AWS. We were a primary shop with the on-prem, with the infrastructure services. And it was a big adaptation as far as technical skills, and we had to learn how to adapt to that. But after time, it became more and more easier for us to do that, and it changed our culture change. But in the meantime, we actually changed our workflow and our processes at the same time. We adapted documentation of our services, and we have architecture designs, and we have procedures of disaster recovery now, and what has been evaluated, how are those services built. That's some of the greatest things that we encountered. It seemed like a negative at first, but became more of a positive, and it's something that we embrace.
Yeah, for Best Friends, we went through an initial phase of, is the cloud going to be able to support our workloads? Again, our CAO had decided that we were going to move our most critical application, most heavy workload application out to AWS, and we were given about three months to design and test and learn AWS. It was an incredibly short amount of time, but AWS allowed us to move really quickly. In terms of a cultural change, one of the things that we still struggle with is our headquarters is in southern rural Utah, and we have one internet provider. They have one fiber connection. It frequently gets cut. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was down for about 8 hours, and that means our whole headquarters goes offline with everything that we have in AWS. Now, we've expanded nationally, and we had the reverse problem, so we'd have external locations that couldn't communicate internally. So at least we're supporting them now. But from a cultural standpoint, we've had to really evaluate every single thing that we put out in AWS and identify what's going to work best out there versus keeping it on-prem.
I can share that. So earlier I used to manage a DevOps shop. Now it's more of a SysOps shops. And the difference between the two, especially as they approach the cloud, cannot be more. And as we begin to accept that we're all turning into sort of developers, be it with infrastructure, be it the application, that mindset, the change that with cloud, the instance doesn't have to stay up, it can come down anytime, and just taking that approach to managing your infrastructure, more of a DevOps approach, is helpful.
So when we think about some different initiatives that we've seen from public sector customers, things like cloud first, certain cloud initiatives and strategies, what are some of the best practices your organizations are using to modernize, and specifically maybe software procurement or software acquisition processes?
I can take that. In terms of best practices, what we are learning is like what you talked about, is doing shooting for an MVP, not so much testing it out. This gives you the ability to download something right away, software as it should be, right? A snap of a finger, you can have that system, and you can start testing it out. Once you have had that, the testing, and you talked about a day where you download, in the morning you download a couple of versions, and then afternoon you do a quick evaluation. That speed and that is becoming part of our best practices. You don't have to go and buy the full ship. You can just buy a piece of it, test it out, and then move from there.
I think one of the best practices that we've started implementing is to actually make sure that we check if software is available in the marketplace. Something that wasn't part of our practice. We just always reach out straight to the vendor. And that's really saved us some time more recently with being able to much more quickly deploy applications.
Yeah, we have a similar model that you had on the previous slide, where if it doesn't fit SaaS first, then we go down to the next model. If it's in AWS, and if it has to be on-prem and so forth. One of the things that we do have we do have an agreement with, internally as far as purchasing the AWS Marketplace. But if we have to bring our own license, then we have to go through an approval process through our lawyers on campus. And it takes a little bit longer time, but we're hopefully trying to rectify that a little bit better and get that process figured out.
Are there any hot button issues around this topic of software procurement that jump out? Security vetting, contract terms, pesky salespeople from ISVs?
For Best Friends, as a nonprofit, we don't really run into that a lot. If we have a need and the budget's there, we can just go out and make the purchase.
I think there are a number in the audience that are coveting your business model there.
And same with licensing. We do tend to try and do the BYOL as a nonprofit. We try to. We hope that vendors are willing to work with us on pricing, but it's been a really smooth process for us.
We do have some internal organization issues. I mean, we have a highly vetted information security team that uses the NIST model as far as their security standards are required. There's a lot of vendors out there that requires high privileges of IAM roles and security set models to get some of their software activated, and it's totally understandable to integrate with the AWS infrastructure. But then we go back to the vendor and we ask, hey, can we actually remove this attribute that's with this permission set? And sometimes they could say, well, at the beginning of the installation of the software, but afterwards it's done. You can probably go ahead and remove that from your IAM role. But most of the times it's our bottlenecks internally within our information security system. But we're working heavily on trying to rectify those issues.
Talking about pesky sales cycle, I can share one experience. So I worked with an agency previously where we were part of a project and the software was being procured the traditional way. And it took about 6 months for it to come down, pass through the procurement cycle, have other guys put it on a system, make it ready for us to start using it. And in that 6 months, we developed a prototype on Amazon, but it still was a long wait, right? And now at NASA, we got the approval, and in a matter of minutes, the software is being tested. Like, that's how quick it was, and just contrasting the two was telling.
Now, I know all of you are using some different marketplace products. Do you have a use case or two that you can share about the products you're using and actually how it helps you with your mission or your outcomes?
Yeah, definitely. We're currently using into AWS CPM. I did an analysis of a price justification on if we were to develop our own backup software on site, how many people would we need full time to do it, and how long it would take, and what would be the requirements to keep that software up to date as AWS does change their API calls. It came to be out to quite a bit of money versus us going out and purchasing it and bringing your own license in. And we saved probably about 75% of the cost that we would bring in on site to develop their own software. So for us to go out to the AWS Marketplace to get a machine up within 5 to 10 minutes, and after configuring, it was we saved a lot of time and energy.
Brentwood.
Yeah, we're also using CPM, and back again when we were doing that initial migration of that first workload, we had 3 months, and that was going from not knowing nothing about AWS. We had a different team managing the web environment to being able to run a critical workload, and we needed something that could be done right away. We're also using OpenVPN on several of our AWS accounts. And that one's really nice for us. There's a free license, so we're using the free one where we can. And then we have BYOL licensing on our other accounts.
So we are also using Cloud Protection Manager CPM for backup reasons. And we also, from Marketplace, and we also got Splunk from Marketplace. One of the, you guys might already know this, but if you want to just script everything out from the Marketplace on the product page, you can get the AMI ID and then throw that in your CLI or whatever template you have.
And you put that in your DevOps process for build and infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
So those two applications from the Marketplace.
Excellent. So thinking about the folks from the industry side, both in the room and to Amazon as well, are there any best practices you've seen working with industry, whether it's the ISV providers or systems integrators, vehicle schedule holders, best practices you've seen that I think could benefit us in partnership supporting you as customers?
I guess I'll start. He's looking at me. I think one of the things that I've run into, so we have done quite a few evaluations of software through the marketplace. And one of the things that I've run into is that not all instance types are always supported, and then you're stuck with that instance type forever. So if it was an instance type that is being deprecated, you're still stuck with it. So just making sure that type of thing is identified when you're launching the instance before it becomes production. That was a painful lesson for us.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was definitely a learning experience. I mean, we were on a cloud project for 4.5 years, and we were definitely learning different best practices as we went along. It was always evolving and changing. I mean, 6 months ago, we would be doing something different, and now we're changing our workflow processes. 6 months later, we currently use a product called ServiceNow to do our change management and to keep our CMDB in line. But as far as doing procurement for software, we definitely need to, for us, it'd probably to vet our evaluation first and try to get that recommendation ahead of time, because usually if we had to bring our own license on, we have a minimum of 2 months to have that procurement to be vetted through our procurement services, and it has to go through our general counsel, which is our lawyers, and they have to go through the ULIF through a fine-tooth comb. But through the marketplace, there's already a good agreement there. So if we didn't have to use a bring your own license, then it's a lot easier.
Aaron, we've heard of actually some customers that are doing a very similar model where they pre-vet a set of software ahead of time, and they make packages or groups of packages that are authorized for their users against a security, a compliance, legal terms and conditions. So any other benefits your organizations are experiencing from using a software catalog or a digital software catalog? Anything else you'd like to share there?
It sure makes trying stuff a lot easier and really quick. Like you were pointing out earlier, where you can launch 5 products and then go through and be like, okay, these 3 didn't quite work the way that we wanted, and then do, especially with the free demos, having 30 days to actually then do a technical review of the applications has been really useful.
So a note to all our industry partners, you have to have free and pilot trials in Marketplace.
Yep.
I definitely agree with Brent here. 30 days is a great evaluation period. Sometimes 60 days would be even better, depending on the timeline of your project. But it's quick and easy. Painless is the key word. Painless is to set up and evaluate a software that's out in the AWS Marketplace and get it within your environment with a matter of minutes is great.
Yep.
And the slide that Matt had about the pyramid, the Ducati crowd and the Volvo crowd, I think that's what I would like to stress again is it's really easy at the same time. Some governance around, some guardrails around how you go about using it. Just to fall back on one of the earlier questions on best practices again, even though it's through the marketplace, try to do it as much as possible, infrastructure as code. Would be what I would say. But yeah, definitely cutting down on the red tape is a big plus.
So last question for me, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing, what's next for you with your AWS platforms, with your adoption in the cloud, and what are you thinking about kind of going forward about how you're going to use the cloud to support your mission?
We have a ton of really great innovative ideas. So we're starting to, from a technology perspective, we're starting to look past our goal, which is 2025 for ending the killing of animals in our shelters. And we're starting to look at what is the shelter of the future. So we're starting to do some evaluations of the Amazon Sumerian to be able to place an animal in your living room so you can see what a St. Bernard looks like in your New York apartment. Or big data. We have over 2,600 network partners, other shelters around the country. And I always use the Pacific Northwest as an example. They run out of cats. Like their shelters actually run out of cats. But in Los Angeles, there's an overabundance of cats in those shelters. How can we use machine learning to identify that and predict it so that they never are actually out of animals?
Excellent.
For us, we're looking, since we're in an operational state, we just ended our 4.5-year project earlier this year. We're looking to optimize the way that we do account provisioning within AWS. We have over 70-some accounts as of right now, and we provide accounts not only to internally, but to our customers on campus, to other IT departments within there. We're looking to basically to speed up the account provisioning through scripting and organizations, and eventually use something as ServiceNow to automate those processes. And with that, we can also limit kind of what was said on the slide earlier is automating our billing and our account provisioning for software within an AWS Marketplace as well. So those are some things that we're looking at right now, and also looking at the cost to optimization as far as reevaluate how much we're actually spending on a service and basically take a look at that and see if we can make it cheaper. So.
Yeah, I love a lot of the features that are out there on the marketplace. The one that I really like is the copy to catalog. But in terms of what I'm looking forward to is in a private marketplace for GovCloud. So.
Excellent. Well, Brent, Aaron, and Harsh, I want to thank you for participating in our panel today. Some of our marketplace team is actually here from the service side, from our operations side, and some of our industry folks as well. We have our state and local team here, our education team, our federal team here as well. We'll be up front. If you have any additional questions for us, we'd love to dialogue with you on features, availability, and capabilities that we can support you with from software marketplaces out of AWS Marketplace. Thank you for your time today, and I want to remind you as well to please complete your evaluations.